You've got a guy that will make the winning plays or winning shots or whatever, and then you tag that along with a guy like Lowry, a guy like Bam, and if you've got the Heroes and the Struces and the other guys, that can fill in the blanks as role players and very good role players, now all of a sudden you're talking about something really devastating.
The Mismatch, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook.
We're about midway through this season, and Bam Adebayo is back, and you look at the standings, and there are the Miami Heat at number 2 in the Eastern Conference. And let's start with them and Cleveland, because Cleveland, now if we just take a snapshot, and again, we're doing all these podcasts in the moment, but they are 2 and they are 4. And if you look at the teams that are straddled around them, you have Chicago, who got beat down by the Grizzlies yesterday and are really going through it in the absence of Lonzo and Levine and Caruso, etc. You have Brooklyn, who has now lost Kevin Durant for a long period of time. And so here are these other 2 teams that were a little lower in the standings earlier in the year, but in Miami's case, has gotten close to fully healthy and gotten one of their key players back, and they're already at second. And Cleveland, who has just kept on trucking, gets to 27 wins yesterday by virtue of their win over Brooklyn. And so now those are 2 and 4. Let's start with Miami. Given what's going on with Chicago, given what's going on with Brooklyn, would it shock you if we look up after the second half of the season and Miami is the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference?
Not one bit. Not one bit. Because with this team, they've done it without Bam. They've done it without Butler. They've done it without Lowry. They're doing it with Gabe Vincent. They're doing it with Caleb Martin. They're doing it with Max Strus. They're doing it with these players that are not nationally known by all 30 fan bases as household names. They're doing it without the guys that are those household names. And like a guy like Caleb Martin in yesterday's game, he had that sequence where I think it was like back-to-back-to-back plays, or maybe 3 out of 4 possessions in a row. He hits this layup inside, steals the ball, makes an outstanding kick-out pass to Strus for 3. And just the energy that he plays with on defense, moving his feet, like you watch him play, you're like, oh, Caleb Martin's locked in. This guy wants to win games. Like, it's as simple as that. Just watching him play, this guy wants to win games in January. And this whole Heat team really embodies that, from Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker all the way on down to the back of the roster. And no, I mean, it would not be surprising one bit if the Heat, when they are at optimal, strength, if they're at the top of the East. You were right about them, Chris. You picked them to make the finals before the season, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Some would call that Heat culture, Kevin.
It sure seems like it, man.
They should use that. They should use that Heat culture thing.
And part of Heat culture isn't bringing in people and making them like you. It's bringing in people like you. And like a guy like Caleb Martin, when you watch him in yesterday's game, it's like, oh, he has this quality. When you watch Omer Yurtseven grab 15 rebounds per game while Bam Adebayo's out, they're bringing in somebody who has that mindset just to play hard constantly. And up and down the roster, they have that. Like your Memphis Grizzlies, they don't play anybody who sucks. They only play good players. Let me tell you something, though. Let me tell you something about that Max Strus that you bring up Memphis. There's nobody in Memphis that doesn't know who that is, because you could probably find this on YouTube, and I would encourage people to go check it out. He was like Larry Bird reincarnate in a summer league game this past year. And in fact, yanks one from about 30 feet to win the game. Just like the game is on the line, walks up, buzzer beater, nails it in the gym in Vegas earlier this year. And I remember watching that game, and I'm like, how is this guy not in the NBA? This guy is unbelievable. He was just a force of nature in this one summer league game. I mean, he's great all summer league, but in that particular game, he was unstoppable. And
And so Max Strus was not an unfamiliar name. In fact, when I saw him in Summer League, it was unfathomable that wasn't an NBA player to me.
And now he's outperforming Duncan Robinson.
Yep.
I mean, it's wild how he's finishing a lot of games over Robinson. I mean, he's just been, the concern with him in the past, he was always, he going back to DePaul, he hovered around 35% from three, below average. He's above 40 now on a high volume, and it seems sustainable. We'll see.
Yeah. And they've got the star power, though it is, I think, underrated star power, right? I think when, Lowry, Butler, and Bam kind of all fit into that category where they're never overrated. I've never felt like any of those guys are overrated on a list that people do of the best players. You're right. Everybody just is trying to fit them in somewhere, right? Jimmy Butler, I think, absolutely has a case of being one of the best players in the entire NBA. And yet when a lot of people make a list of like the top 10 players, he's not one of those automatic names that everybody puts in there. But you saw yesterday again. I mean, he's both ends, bona fide winner, leader, like he's got the whole package. And he's playing again at this extremely high level. And you feel like with the game on the line, you've got a guy that will make the winning plays or winning shots or whatever. And then you tag that along with a guy like Lowry, a guy like Bam. And if you've got the heroes and the Struces and the other guys, that can fill in the blanks as role players and very good role players, now all of a sudden you're talking about something really devastating. I will say that when they were at full strength, I've told you that the best teams that I have seen in person this year, Phoenix was the best team in the Western Conference. Miami was the best team from the Eastern Conference. That's the best team I've seen in person.
The funny thing is with Miami is we're mentioning all these guys that have been out. We haven't mentioned Markieff Morris, who's been out since the Jokic hit. And, of course, Victor Oladipo's still sidelined. You don't know what Oladipo's going to be able to offer, but theoretically, you get those guys back in addition to everything else. You got, 12, 13, 14 guys that deserve minutes on your roster. Like they're a deep team that's going to have the ability in the playoffs, assuming good health, to play different styles. And I mean, that's the key thing. We talk about versatility from individual players, like switching a screen from a guard onto a wing, from a big onto a forward, like switching on-ball screens, switching off-ball screens, and all that type of stuff. But versatility is also for Eric Spoelstra, the best coach in basketball, to be like, okay, I can play with two bigs. I can play with one big. I can play small ball. I can mix and match and have all these different types of lineups and take different shapes and styles depending on the personnel that I put on the floor. Miami is shaping up to be that type of team too, where Spo can do whatever he wants as a coach with the lineups that he puts out there. Miami's for real, man. They're for real.
I hadn't even thought about Oladipo until you just mentioned it. Outside of a few nights ago, I was at a game and the game had gotten out of hand, and my producer and I were looking at eBay auctions for basketball cards, and he ended up becoming a quick topic of conversation. There was like this Victor Oladipo autograph rookie card that was up for auction, and I think the highest bid was like $8 or $9, Kevin. And I turned to my producer and I was like, "You have got to be kidding me." I was like, what do you think this would have gone for? I mean, this guy was like the best shooting guard in the Eastern Conference for a minute. He was like all-star. Like, what a fall. I mean, and I'm like, geez Louise. And now you could get a friggin' autograph rookie for nothing? This guy, like, I hadn't even thought about him. I don't know if it's very hard to think of like an ascent like that into becoming what he was for that brief moment of time and then just gone. Just not even on the radar at all. And we kept on thinking like, okay, maybe his best days are behind him, but he can still be a valuable player. Like, he hasn't contributed at all. It'd be crazy if he came back and was able to contribute, at this point. Just
When was
he's
the
just
last time he was an all-star? The 2018-19 season?
That's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago, but it feels like a different lifetime ago. That's for
It
damn
does.
sure. I mean, like ever since March 2020, everything before that. I mean, that even feels even way before that because it was 2018-19.
Yeah. Wild. And maybe there'll be a second act. Maybe he comes in and is able to contribute in a playoff game or something at some point. And we
There's
haven't
a chance.
heard the last of him.
There is a chance. Like last year in Houston, he had some good games. It's not like he was a total zero night in, night out for the Rockets last year before, making his way to the Heat. I mean, it's not like he can't contribute. But it's just a matter, can he reach the peaks that he did before? That I'm not so sure of.